Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate to see all of you here. And I'm going to talk to you today about microadventures. And I'm going to tell you what a microadventure is by sharing with you one that I had during my first job. I was working in Obihiro, which is a city in the north of Japan. It's known for having the second longest park bench in the world. And I lived here for a year, and I worked for the city hall. And one day, at work, we found a hornet's nest. These are Japanese hornets. I made them big to show you how dangerous they are. And we found this nest. And my coworkers decided to take care of the nest themselves. So they got their supplies ready. They had face towel masks, butterfly net helmets, and then they found the supply closet, and things got much more interesting. Also, Frankenstein was there, so you gotta have that. And they took all of their supplies, and they went to the nest, and they started beating it like a piñata. And they brought it down, and they caught it in the net, and a few hours later, I found hornet larvae on my desk. And I remember this, exactly how it happened, so well, even though this happened 12 years ago. I don't remember my actual job title. I don't remember what those coworkers did for a job. I don't remember what I did every day, but I remember this. And if I was to ask you, what kind of things do you remember from your first job, maybe 5, 10 years ago? And what stories would you tell me about that job? And I don't mean the kind of stories you would tell an interviewer to show that you have a specific kind of skill, or how great you are, or how you accomplished something. I mean the stories that you cannot wait to tell your friends and your family and the people around you. So how many of you would tell me something like this, something unexpected? How many would tell me about a really great spreadsheet that you made? Yeah, okay. There's always one. There's some really cool spreadsheets out there, I will give you that. That's true. But for most of us, what we remember is the unexpected. Something that happened that we don't associate with our normal day-to-day jobs. And there's science behind that, because an unexpected event actually triggers memory creation. This is so that our ancestors didn't get killed. It was for survival. But it's still there. And what we remember, what we tell stories about, what we can't wait to share, is always about the unexpected. However, in our professional life, we spend most of our time, probably 99% of our time, planning the expected, planning for everything to go exactly as planned. So what I suggest is we spend some of that time, maybe 10%, maybe more, planning the unexpected for the people around us. Because we love the unexpected, but we can't plan it for ourselves because we know it's coming. It's a spoiler alert. But we can plan it for everyone else. And if you plan the unexpected for the people in your professional life, you'll become part of the stories they tell, and they will remember you. When somebody comes asking for a job recommendation, or who might be good for a promotion, you'll be top of mind. So, and sometimes, it will actually help people follow you. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to tell you about a job I had shortly after the Hornets. I was hired by the Canadian Embassy to work on the G8 summit. And the summit was in a very strange place. It was up against an active volcano. Inside the hotel, there was a water park. There was this. That's all I know about that. And there was these chandeliers in every single room that had fruit on them. It was a surreal place. But I was so serious there because the Prime Minister was coming and everyone was worried, and there was so much tension in the office of what if we make a mistake? what's going to happen. Everyone will know because the prime minister is so important. And then I just wasn't that serious anymore. I got this thing here. This is a wand for directing traffic. You see these a lot in Japan. People do this to move traffic along. And we had a printer that didn't work. And it was causing a lot of stress. And everything would come out of it so slowly. So I used to stand next to the printer and direct the paper out of it whenever someone tried to print something. And thank you for laughing. It's actually not that funny. It's not that creative, but it was unexpected. And the people around me appreciated that. And it broke the tension. I used it to break up fights from time to time. This one's staged, but real ones too. And I became associated with this change in morale that happened. And because of that, people started trusting me, and they started telling me things. And I ended up having much more of a role in the summit than I was initially brought on to have. I was brought on as essentially an assistant, and by the end, I was leading this whole team of people. And after that, I was promoted to the head of that section, and I applied for that promotion, and I was the most unexperienced person who applied. But I was selected because I was able to rally people around me and to lead without having official power. And they saw that as valuable, and they promoted me. And then I was in charge of logistics for the next summit, where we have a lot more world leaders, a little bit bigger. This is APEC. And this time, I didn't hold back as much as I had the first time. I made these. These are the summit cats. And I would have this official briefing binder, and I would print these guys full size and put them inside. And during important meetings, I would flip through it and let whoever was next to me see the cats. And sometimes, if someone was having a bad day, I would make one especially for that person based on the stress that they were dealing with. And with a completely straight face, I would just hand it to them like it was an official document. And they would look worried for a second and then turn it over and see what it was. And I did other things too. I held some security badges hostage for a while. I got everyone in the command center to play dead when someone new would come. And lots of other little things that people remember. And this was 10 years ago. And recently, earlier this year, there was another summit in Turkey that I wasn't involved with. But these feral cats walked on the stage. And I got some emails from my former coworkers saying, "The summit cats are real." And I'll tell you a boring story now. The summit went well. A lot of very important people were very happy. We saved a ton of money. I got an award in a frame. But that's a boring story. And I had a goodbye party when I left this job. And everyone from the embassy was there. And the ambassador gave a speech. And I thought he would tell that boring story that I just told you. But he doesn't like boring stories. People don't like boring stories. And what he told as a story was this environment that I had created around me by creating these micro-adventures for the people in my professional life. And there he is. It was that night. And the one thing I regret of this whole situation is that I didn't create anything for him because I thought he was too high level, too important, too professional. But he had all the APEC cats. His secretary was giving him those summit cats. He saw them. And if I had created something for him, he would have loved it and probably remember me more. So when I tell people about these things that I've done and created that are kind of silly, often they say, that would never work in my office. We're too bureaucratic. We're too conservative. We're no nonsense. I would look unprofessional. And that's fair. That's what I thought. That's why I didn't make anything for him. And what I would say to that is that type of environment, the bureaucratic, conservative, no-nonsense environment, I've worked in that environment for 7 years. And everything that I had that was good, every promotion, every recognition, people following me, was because of these small adventures that I created for the people around me. So if you think that your workplace is too bureaucratic and too conservative for something like this, I would tell you that your workplace most needs something like this. And if you work in a place like this, even very small things that you do can have a big impact, can create the unexpected. It's easy to create the unexpected in places that are focused on making the expected. It's open season out there. You can differentiate yourself. And if you're still afraid, I would say, know your audience. Know who you're creating for. This isn't about expressing your own creativity. It's not about doing things that you yourself think are funny. It's about creating delight for someone else. And you need to know that person. You need to know where their limits are so you can get real close to them. But if you know this, and if you take the time to understand what might surprise and delight and amaze those people, I think you'll find that you will not look unprofessional. You will be recognized. You will differentiate yourself. You will be part of the stories that people love to tell. This one's true. So I want to tell you about my summer internship. I worked in a place where this was actually the norm, where creating small adventures for people was part of the everyday life. In a place like that, you're not necessarily going to differentiate yourself, but there are some pretty great things that happen. So I worked for Coto. Coto is a taiko drumming troupe that was created to support social and economic development on the island where it is based. And I lived on this island for 10 weeks, and it was beautiful. It was like another planet there. And there was a place where you could walk through a tunnel and be on the moon. And the drummers from this organization, they live there and they train, but they don't only learn how to drum, they also learn how to farm, cook, sew, make things out of wood, and interact with rural communities. And their schedule's very regimented. They wake up every day at 5 a.m., go to bed at 10, and every part of their day is scheduled. But they still take time to create small adventures for each other and for the communities. And this culture of creating the unexpected permeates throughout the entire organization. And when I was here, I lived in a school. The school was built in 1912, and it closed in 2011 because they didn't have enough students. The island was in decline, population-wise, and only 23% of graduating high school seniors remain on the island after graduation. So lots of closed schools. And I lived in this one, in the principal's office, with these people. And they're my coworkers as well. So we worked, and we lived, and we ate together. And we would make these meals, these very complex 3 to 5 course meals with whatever ingredients we had on hand. And we took turns cooking and making meals that would surprise and delight and impress each other. And one day, they said to me, "Would you like to touch some slimy things? If so, wake up at 5 a.m. So I did. And they took me here to a rice field where some of the local people were analyzing the animals that were living in the field, these little fish, little frogs, little critters. They were slimy, that was correct. And we helped them to classify and look around and do all of those things, and it was an adventure. And I'll remember this for a long time. And I made a little adventure for them too. This is Domokun. He haunts the school. He's a friendly ghost, so don't worry. And his story grew and grew as I was living and working here. And I would take pictures of my coworkers and add Domokun to them and say, oh, looks like Domokun wants to hang out with you today. And I would have been afraid to make this in one of my earlier jobs. Maybe I would have made it eventually, but I made this on day 3 because the culture allowed it, and that was how they do things. If I hadn't done this, what would have they thought of me? They would think I didn't fit in here. Get out of here. And so I'm showing you lots of kind of fun photos from this time, but these people also worked really hard. They had a lot of impact. And they created value in ways that I did not imagine was even possible. And what allowed them to do that and operate this way was the culture that they created by making unexpected things happen for each other. And one day, one of my coworkers grabbed me and said, "You're going to learn how to drum now." And so I did. Hold on. There we go. I took a workshop from this man. He was one of the founding members of the organization, and he was amazing. And he taught me how to drum. And because I learned how to drum, I could participate in send-offs. And send-offs are when somebody leaves the island, the organization plays drums at the drum center as they pull away in the car. And sometimes we go a step further and we take all of the drums, put them into a truck, and drive to the ferry port. And then we hide behind buildings with the drums. And as soon as the people board the ferry, we run out there and we play them off again as the ferry departs. And so they did this for me when I left. And I knew it was coming because I had been part of it before. But they still hid the drums. And they played as the ferry pulled away, and I couldn't see them anymore, but I could still hear them. And then I couldn't hear them anymore, but I knew they were still playing. And so I was only there for 10 weeks. That's really short. But I'm going to remember them forever, because they are part of the stories that I love to tell. And I'm going to tell you one more story. It's the last one. That also happened on the island. I went to an underground auction, and I met this man, the auctioneer. And it wasn't just an auction, it was a show. This man was incredible. He was a performer. And after the auction was over, I went to talk to him. And he asked me, "What are you?" And I told him that I study business. And he said, "Business? I know everything about business. And I am going to tell you everything about business." And he did. And we talked for a few hours, and he told me everything about business. Now, I didn't understand everything about business because his dialect was very strong. He had no teeth, and he drank an entire 1.5 liters of potato liquor while we were talking. But what I remember him saying is this: a long time ago, gold had no value because gold is soft. You can't kill people with gold. Iron had value. Right now, what has value is this: time spent with interesting people, interesting stories, and surprises that you're not expecting that bring you joy, and drinking potato liquor with friends. I want to buy that, but I can't buy it. I can only make it. I can only create it. What I want to tell you is this. In your professional life, as you leave this place, as you go forward, take time to plan the unexpected for the people around you. Be part of the stories that they love to tell. Because we thrive on the unexpected. It's all we talk about. And we can't create it for ourselves. We can only create it for everybody else.